ideal world, we have the real world, and everything in between. So keep your eyes open. The idea with organ transplants is that you do need a closer match than nothing. So you want to match your red cells, you want to match your white cells, you want to match your MHCs, the tissue antigens. But as we move along with the ability to repress repression, then that'll be less important. In other words, if they can control rejection with drugs, then almost any organ would do. So I think probably some of you have on your driver's license something that says that you are an organ donor, do you? You have that? It's a big red patch on your driver's license. Well, if you do, here's a little piece of advice from Grandma. If anybody ever asks to see your license to verify a check or anything that you want to cash or pay for, keep your freaking thumb over that red patch. You know what I'm saying? Because if we get to the point where all organs will work, you better watch how you step off the curb. People are going to be mowed down and their organs taken. People have been kidnapped from bars, drugged and kidnapped from bars, and they've woken up in motels out in Long Island with one kidney missing because they're looking for a phenotype. They're looking for a phenotype. So if I am ever asked for verification, I do keep my thumb over my red patch. What are you doing?
Oh, hi. Just checking on my kids.
Okay. Just wondered.
Oh, okay.
I keep my finger over the red patch because at this point in life, if I present my license to somebody and I get this, they're not looking for a date. They're looking for an organ. However, I just mentioned that as something that you might want to keep in your mind. Okay. So we aren't at the point now where any organ will do, but we will get there. And have you been to the Bodies exhibit down at the South Street Seaport?
Yeah.
Did you ever wonder where they come from? How come they look so damn healthy? People don't usually die in robust health. They generally degenerate in many systems. So if you've got a very strong muscular system, maybe you died in an accident that didn't destroy any part of your body, whatever kind that would be. Where did they get the bodies from?
Prison. Prisoners.
Where?
I heard it was prisoners.
Executed people.
Right, right. You gotta look at those things. I once got a book that was a dissection book that had been done in Japan. And it was absolutely incredible, but it's impossible that all those people would have, the ones I saw, would have died a natural death because you just don't look that great when you die unless you run into a tree and then nothing gets damaged, but who does that? All right. So here we are, we're in the organ transplants. We've gone through the 80s now because there's more stuff for that. And we get into the 90s, and here we're into genetic medicine. We're really into genetic medicine in a big way now, in 2014, because they're looking at the genotype of the organism that is affecting you, and they're looking at your genotype to see what kind of medication you could take that would allow the tumor to recess. Because some things are incompatible, so why put somebody through something that isn't going to help the problem in the first place? So you're going to hear a lot about genomics, and that's going to be the future. You're going to hear a lot about prenatal medicine. They're now looking at all the things that could happen during pregnancy that will influence the fetus when the fetus is 40 years old. You can now get heart disease in the prenatal state that expresses itself when you're 40. So now there's nothing that you can't hate your mother for. Seriously. Now it's the genes, too. It's going to be her prenatal nutrition, the drugs she took after you, after she gave birth to you, or before she gave birth to you, or the whatever. It's just nuts. So prenatal medicine is amazing at this point. And that kind of brings us to where we are today. Now, I did not cover the waterfront with all this stuff. I didn't cover the waterfront. But I'm trying to give you a perspective. I'm trying to give you a longitudinal view of how this works. And who that you know about that you think made an important contribution did I leave out that I should note on the board? Yes.
Chan, didn't he help develop penicillin along with Fleming and Florey?
Who?
Chan, C-H-A-I-N, or Chan.
Oh, yeah, but he didn't get credit for it.
But he did develop it right, with the, he was part
Yes,
of
he
it.
worked with them. A lot of people were working on things, but they didn't get credit for it. In '60, when the DNA molecule was finally elucidated, Watson and Crick got credit for it. But they had a third partner, Wilson, and he left before everything got done. So Watson and Crick got credit for elucidating what the DNA molecule looked like. The point there is you gotta stick to it. Rosalind Yalow, who developed radioimmunoassay at the Bronx VA with her partner Bernstein, got all credit for it because Bernstein had the misfortune to die before it became Nobel Prize worthy. So she got all the credit for it, and she did do a lot of work on it, so that was a really big thing. That's the whole point. The Bronx VA had a Nobel Prize winner there for years and years and years. You don't go to very many hospitals and find a Nobel Prize winner. You don't. So that's why the Bronx is famous too. Okay, anybody else that I left off that we should have, did I have, I did Barnard.
Salk and Sabin, did we?
Yeah, Salk and Sabin, right. Those are there because, thank you, they did the original work on the measles vaccine. Wait, the polio vaccine, sorry. They did the original on the polio vaccine. They did a type 1, 2, and 3.
What was that?
Sabin and Salk.
Oh, when?
Oh, that was in the 60s. That was in the 60s. Late 50s, early 60s. So now, you don't have iron lungs all over the place. Well, you don't have them anyway. You have respirators. Much neater than an iron lung. But the iron lung was the original respirator. Imagine that, a huge, huge machine that smashed the air out of your chest and then created a negative pressure so the breathing would come back in.
Ooh.
What?
I said, ooh.
I know. A respirator is a much more constricted machine than it used to be. Okay, so they were very, very important. In the 50s, many of the hospitals filled up with polio patients because they didn't have a vaccine, and that became one of the biggest hospitalizations in the summer. Anybody else? Anybody else? You ever heard of Barney Clark? Ever hearing about Barney Clark?
Yeah.
Yeah, the heart transplant guy, he was my hero. Barney Clark was the one who got a heart that was an artificial heart, the artificial heart. And the information that they learned from Barney told them that they could never successfully make an artificial heart. The artificial nature of the material stimulated clotting, because that's what happens when you get stuff in your body. It stimulates a clot. That's how your body seals it off. So they had such a problem with him having thrombi in various parts of his body that they would have to dissolve with clot busters and anticoagulants, that he went from hemorrhaging to clotting over and over again until he passed away. But they learned so much from him. They have tried artificial hearts. I know Dick Cheney has a ventricular assist machine to help his ventricle contract, but it's not the same thing. It's just more external than it is internal. So this guy proved the whole field of science in the direction that it should go in, and it was just amazing. He was a dentist. He was very large. They had to make a huge heart. They tried other hearts, and a couple of them went into chests that were too small, and they couldn't close the chest, and the chest kept breaking open. I thought that was pretty dumb, but that's what happened, yes.
Christian Barnard, right? I know you used to have organ transplants down there, I was out of the room for that.
Oh, heart transplant, first heart transplant in Australia. Couldn't get it.
Was it Australia or was it South Africa?
Oh, South Africa, I'm sorry, South Africa. Couldn't get it through the FDA here. And there is, I can't think of the guy's name, but there is they just approved the theory recently here in the United States, which is a ventricular reduction. When you get an enlarged heart, it doesn't pump well and it's very inefficient. So it's possible, they developed this in Brazil, I think, taking away a portion of the hypertrophied heart and reducing its size to increase its efficiency. You had to go to South America to get that done, and now I think they've approved it here. It's a ventricular reduction where they compress it, and you get much more powerful thrusting and ejection capability, so that's an interesting thing. Whatever time you live in history is what you will be able to take advantage of. You know what I'm saying? If you need something and it hasn't been developed yet, you're out of luck. But if you need something and it has been developed, then you profit by that. So you think, well, what does that have to do with me? Well, it has a lot to do with you. Because you want to stay in your best state of health. And I'm not talking about the Dr. Oz state of health. I don't know what, this program is very funny. I don't know what's real, I don't know what's not real. But he's a very funny man. So pay attention to what's going on in medicine